Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Rwagnation League Grand Prix here in the F2 cars at Silverstone. I'm Ben Ruggy McConnell, and joining me alongside, as always, is the fantastic Safso. How you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you doing?
Fandabidosi, not gonna lie. It's a brilliant Grand Prix. Home GP for both me and you. It's actually probably one of the Grand Prix where overtaking is very easy to do, but it requires like a real master to be able to actually lock it in. In the F2 cars, it's that little bit harder, mainly due to the fact that you have less downforce, but you also have a lot more weight to it. Obviously, the rear end is also pretty lively. But before we get any further into this qualifying, I need to ask you what your 1, 2, 3 prediction is for quali.
I think I'm going to go with Beaker, Maku, and Hayden. I'm going to put my faith in the Gutless.
Yeah, alright. So I've actually heard from all three of those drivers today. Maku did a 37.5 in time trial earlier. Beaker, in his first lap, did a 38.0. And he's normally one to rely on when it comes to these really fast qualifying paces. So, yep, I'm with you. Oh, never mind, he's just invalidated.
Oh, well, that's out of the window.
Yeah, I do want to see what time he would have chucked in anyway, just because I think he would still have got pole position, but we'll have to come back to him in just a short while. But yes, Maku did it. Oh, he's invalidated as well, so he's actually not going to be in the running for the top 3 either. Piloto Paya, currently your fastest. Maku has retired. He says there's no point going any further. I am, in fact, slower. Now that I've invalidated, so that's bad. Piloto Paya P1. Aeterno P2.
Yeah, Hayden has invalidated as well at Maggot and Beckett, so seems we may be seeing a fair few penalties in the race.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. We've always talked about week after week how consistency is so much more important than natural race pace. So if you're not consistent, expect to be getting these warnings, expect to be getting these penalties, and expect to be losing out on some very valuable points as we come into it. But Piloto Paya will cross the line by quite some margin, actually, ahead of everyone else. 9/10 he was ahead of P2, which was Aeterno. But Piloto Paya gets the very important 4 points for qualifying. So the rundown at the end of the qualifying session is the top 10 drivers, one of which is Amkasa, can I point out, actually gets to put a lap time on the board. Piloto Paya P1, Aeterno P2, Kulmanik P3, Landos Milton P4. Foxy, who had a fantastic week last week, is P5 today. Ravenduck P6, Barsai P7, WG Players P8 with Burrito Bandito P9. Mankasa rounding out the top 10. Who would have thought you'd be saying that today with Marquez then best of the rest P11. Then Hayden, Hardy, Aviator, Dennis, Tiger Jr., Maku, and Beaker. Oh, some names outside there that shouldn't really be in the DQ zone, normally at the front of the grid, have got a lot of work to do today.
Yeah, especially people like Beaker. I think Beaker was the first one to invalidate, so he's got to work all the way from the back to try and get up as far up as possible. Ideally, at least P8, because then he can be in that mixing order for the second race. But obviously, I think he'd like to be higher up, sort of the podium positions.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I don't think this is going to sort of change the way that Beaker's going to attack this race. I think the only thing it's going to do is make him just push that a little bit harder. And I've seen many times where he gets hit mentally. He gets like a mental knockback that puts him right back somewhere, and then he just suddenly picks up the pace and just starts tearing it all up. So, you know, these F2 lobbies, they are quite chaotic at the initial early stages of the race, so they do tend to have a couple of issues lap 1, and we may even see a couple of spins on it. So the only thing that concerns me for Beaker is he is somebody who really struggles to avoid contact. He cannot, for the life of him, stay out of any contact that happens. You know, if he could do that, if he could just adapt to not being hit or not being affected by any other car on the circuit, he's in with a really good chance of actually scoring really high today and even, you know, put himself maybe even in podium position. There is also a slight reliance on the top 4, 5, 6 drivers pulling away, not pulling away too much, that the gap becomes unclosable.
Yeah. And I think him starting at the back will be the sort of kick up the backside. He needs to be like, okay, there's a lot of drivers in front of me. I know I'm quicker than a lot of them. I need to take it a bit more carefully, get through them, and then I can start pushing to try and get up to the quicker guys. And I think that might be what keeps him safe in this race.
Now, he has raced here before, but this is actually the first time I've seen Aoturno actually do well. He is currently P2. This is a good place to start, but there's more to it than just that. It's all well and good doing it in qualifying, but the race is where you get the most points. So he's going to need to maintain a really solid start as we run in towards turn 1. You don't want to go side by side. It can get pretty messy if you do. Obviously, even then into turn 2, 3, and 4, it is pretty awkward to go side by side even through there, especially in these F2 cars where you want to get as much traction as you can coming out the corners. You can't really afford to stamp the throttle that bit too hard. If you do, especially with how these cars react in the lower gears, you are going to lose your back end.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see another lot of few spins today, maybe reminiscent of what we've been seeing in real life the couple days.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, a couple of corners to go before we get ourselves back onto the grid and underway with the first F2 race. This is the feature race. Remember, the feature and the sprint race are both 25% races. So it's 7 laps in this feature race, and I believe it's 5 laps in the second race. So bear that in mind. Quickly, 1, 2, 3, go.
Piloto, Kulmanek, Landis.
Oh. Piloto, Foxy, Landos Millman.
Oh, now that is a brave call.
Yes, I believe in the Foxinator. But it is Piloto Paya who is going to be leading his way off the start here. He obviously needs to get as clean a start as he possibly can do. He has to rely on there not being any issues getting through the gears. So the lights go on then. And it's go time here in Britain. A lot of wheel spin from a lot of the drivers here. I think that was Sabine Tiarton who's made a mistake and he's gone right into the side of Barside, who's been right off into the wall, and that is a big issue for him. I think he's still going, but he has had a major collision. Kolmanik has had a beautiful start. Has actually got himself alongside Piloto Paya, getting himself up in towards P1, but he is going to lose out again as Piloto Paya has got a good run through that corner and is kind of blocking the way there for Kolmanik. Foxy up to P3. Aoturno drops to P4.
Yeah, and actually, your man for the podium, Foxy, he's already up into P3. I was on board with him for the start. He got effectively no wheel spin. He got about as close to a perfect start as I think you can get. But he wasn't able to find a gap going into turn 1, so he had to stay behind. Oh, Cormag's had a slip.
Yeah, and also Maku's had an issue as well. He's had contact with, I think that was Amkasa. Both the teammates coming together. Wing damage for Maku. I'm just going to have a quick look at Amkasa, who's currently off-road right now, mowing the lawn. Gets a huge 10-second penalty. And also, I believe he's got wing damage. Oh, that was so close to hitting, again, Barside. No, Amkasa hasn't got wing damage. He's just having issues. But there is penalties coming in thick and fast now. Raymonduk has a 3-second penalty for ignoring yellow flag. The stewards would normally remove that if it was an F1 race. However, it is an F2 race, and these are more for fun than anything. Aoturno is looking to go for a send down the inside here of Foxy in towards Stowe. It's going to have to be a late break, and it is. He's gone deep into the corner, but he's actually managed to keep that alongside, and I think Foxy now is trying to get around the outside of the final few corners. I think this is a bit too much to ask. It is. He has backed out, and Aoturno recovers a little bit and gets himself back to P3.
Yeah, I believe at Cops, Foxy actually had to try to have a go at Kulmanek, had to back out, and then what just transpired happened. So that is a turn up to 3rd, and Piloto does appear to be pulling a bit of a gap.
Now, telemetry on left is a little bit broken. We are only on lap 2, not lap 3, and there are a lot of people that are in places that they are actually not in those places. So Kulmanek, I believe, is actually P2. I think Piloto Paya is ahead and by a margin. I'm just going to confirm that. Yes, he is. Then it should go Aoturno and then Foxy, I believe. Eden Goliso is actually going to go for a move here on Lando's Miltman down the inside. Beautiful maneuver. He's actually managed to lock that one in. I don't think Landos is actually going to be able to make it work, but he's going to try and go around the outside here. This is a very difficult maneuver to work, and yes, he hasn't quite got it, but he does have the switchback of dreams. He's actually got a fantastic run through here. This could actually be a drag race in towards Cop's corner, which is somewhere you really don't want to go side by side. The grip is just something you have to rely on so much. Landos goes deep as Hayden backed out, and Hayden's actually got a better run through this as a result. In towards Maggots and Beckett's we go then, still side by side. I think Hayden will get that position back. Yes, he will. He's up to P7. And yeah, there's no DRS yet. I know it will say that we've got DRS, but they will not actually have it until the start of the next lap.
Yeah, that was a great scrap between the two. They're still going to go at it. I believe Lando's in the slipstream. Hayden's coming off well. But that was just a game of switchbacks, wasn't it? It was just, okay, you'll take that corner, I'll take this corner. You want to brake later? I'm going to brake earlier.
Yeah. Exactly. That was literally exactly how it went down. Beaker going for a move around the outside here. WG players kind of come in late as well on Beaker. Beaker is still very much a car ahead. Oh, a little bit of contact between the two of them. It's very marginal between them. Dennis actually rotated as well in that collision. And he is now falling down the order to P12. His teammates right there on the back of him in for P13. Lots of cars spread out around the track. Maku obviously did pit and switch onto the softs, which is why he's so much further back than the others. WG players and Beaker having a little bit of a moment there between the two, but they are still A-OK. Who is that at the back? Is that Tiger Jr.? Yeah, Tiger Jr. and Raven currently 16-17.
Yeah, so he's only just had a small look at Cormanic. He was well within the DRS range, had some decent slipstream, but couldn't quite pull over the speed they wanted. Now look at him, he's all over the back, trying to pull to the inside. Cormanic's had a bit of a poor exit, so it's going to be a drag race down to Cops again. We're seeing a fair few moves, or at least attempts at moves here. Look out for Foxy, he's looking for any little move, a little bit of contact. I think it's all fine.
Foxy might actually benefit from this though, because look at this. Like you say, he's kind of just sitting back watching this all unfold. But he's actually going to get 2 cars worth of tow, and he's right on the gearbox of Colmanic already. And he's going to have DRS, which Aeterno will not. So whilst Piloto Paya is miles up the road, this is realistically a fight for P2 that's kind of separated by 3 cars. There is, however, a Hayden Gullis in effectively P5, as Colmanic and Aeterno are going side by side through Stowe. Aeterno has held on to that position. But the more that these guys scrap, the better this is for Hayden.
Yeah, he is. I think he's catching. I haven't seen that gap drop dramatically, but it has just dropped a few tenths in that last chicane. So, yeah, these guys do need to make sure they're not losing too much time, or we could be seeing a second podium from Mr. Gullis.
And Beaker and Marquez are going side by side. Beaker has gone for a bit of a move in towards turn 1. He did lose a bit of momentum there, but I think Marquez can't really retaliate. This has allowed Beaker to move up to P7. A big lockup there. From Beaker. He's having a lot of issues. Now, I believe Marquez is playing on a keyboard, bear that in mind. So the fact that he's actually able to do what he's doing in this current game on the keyboard is fantastic. So fair play to him. Bit of a shout out. He is P8, remember. So in the F2s, the top 8 get flipped and reversed for the sprint race. So if you finish in P8 at the end of the feature race, you will be on pole for the sprint race. So bear that in mind. It's not all doom and gloom if you didn't quite get the position you wanted, but you must be sort of P8 or above to be affected by that. Otherwise, you'll stay exactly where you are. This scrap for P2 is probably not going to end until the end of this Grand Prix, or someone dies, whichever comes first.
And honestly, either of those is just as likely as the other at the moment.
Well, actually, I mean, I agree, but they've been really good at staying alongside of each other and not having any contact. Colmanic and Aeterno have been side by side in both Stowe and the third to last corner. And second to last corner, actually. Oh, that's going to affect him. Foxy just got himself a 2-second penalty there for cutting Stowe a bit too much on the inside. I've not seen that in a very long time. There's also a bit of a battle going on down at the P13 margin as Burrito Bandito has lost out to Barside. Hardy's looking to try and pass Dennis. But Dennis is currently holding onto that P10 slot for now. There will still be a bit of a mistake from Burrito Bandito, but he still manages to avoid Barside. Does look for the inside by accident. That was more evasion of contact rather than actually going for a send. But, you know, Burrito did the right thing, making sure he didn't have a contact. And they are all still going nice and strong.
Meanwhile, Kumanik still has DRS on Aeterno. Foxy is nearly out of that range. He is technically out of the range, but he was within it at the detection point, so he's got to hope he can pull back in on that second, or he is going to be in big trouble from behind, with Hayden actually now only 1.4 seconds behind Foxy. He is catching him at a rate of knots.
Yeah, he really is. Like I said, you know, when these guys start fighting through the corners, that's where Hayden can benefit the most, because he doesn't lose any time through there, whereas these guys will. So, you know, Foxy is, yes, still sort of on the limit. He does have to get a move on if he wants to sort of be involved in this battle for P2. But I think Hayden might be the difference maker. He might actually be able to sort of close in quite quickly onto Foxy. You know, towards the end of this lap, I reckon he's going to be in the DRS of Foxy, ready to attack, probably on the Wellington Straight. But I think at the same time, this battle between Aeterno and Kulmanik is going to go on for such a long time that I think both Foxy and Hayden can actually get right back into this.
Yeah, and it depends how quickly Cormanic can catch Eterno, really, doesn't it? Because at the moment he's sort of staying in this 6-7 tenths margin. Eterno's just able to hold him at an arm's reach. But if Cormanic can get well back within that range, so that perfect 4/10 striking distance, and then really hold each other up, that is what's going to get Foxy and Hayden back in, as Hayden has got within a second of Foxy and there's a couple of penalties.
I don't know if you saw who the first of those two were, but
Cormanic.
Yeah, he's got a 2-second time penalty, so Eterno is actually looking pretty good to hold on to this P2 regardless. Hayden Gullis suddenly looks very good for a P3. Like he's within range of Foxy to benefit on his 4 seconds of penalties that he's got now. But also, he's near enough there to be able to benefit on Kulmanic's penalty that he's got.
Yeah, and he hasn't actually got any warnings of his own, never mind penalties. So he could even push the track limits once or twice if he wanted, just to get that little bit of gain. He shouldn't need to pull any gain on Foxy at the moment. He is well within DRS range. He should start getting slipstream on these straights now. Yeah. But with Kulmanic, just to make sure he stays in that window, or gets into that window rather, he may have to be a bit tricky with the track limits.
Yeah, I mean, his pace is faster than all of those guys ahead right now anyway. But yeah, you're right. He does need to sort of get a little bit more aggressive with the track, especially as we are already on the second to last lap. We're about to go on to the final lap. So there's a bit of work to be done for Hayden. He needs to pass Foxy and stay within the 2-second margin for Kulmanic. He's actually gained a lot through there. Beaker's going for a move here on Lando's Milkman as well, or at least he's trying to. I think he's got a full wing this time. No, Beaker is in fact missing an end plate, and that has kind of contributed towards that 2-second penalty he's just now achieved. So we are now on the final lap. Piloto Paya 9.3 seconds ahead of the rest of the grid. Eterno in P2. He's currently clear of Kulmanic, especially the fact that Kulmanic has that penalty as well. So Joe, as we refer to him, which is Eterno, for those of you who don't know, he is looking very comfortable up there in P2.
Yeah, I think he just needs to bring the car home, keep it nice and safe on the tarmac within the white lines, and then he'll be happy boy. And it could be that we have Eterno and Hayden on the same podium. Imagine that.
I know. But on top of that, we may also see them right next to each other at the start of the sprint race if they continue as is. You know, this is really looking pretty solid. He's right now within the range of Kulmanic and Foxy, so he doesn't actually have to pass either of them. He will gain due to the penalties that both of these guys have achieved. So Aiden's looking very good for a podium. And yeah, then we will see them very close to each other on the grid. Obviously, it won't be on the same row of the grid, but still, this is fantastic.
Yeah, and obviously Hayden was very happy with that first podium he got last time out. Imagine how happy he's going to get with his 2 consecutive podiums.
Yeah, exactly. That would be... I mean, again, it comes down to the same thing we talk about every single week. Oh, Hayden! Whoa, he's getting so quickly there. I think that may have actually been Foxy just kind of lifting to let him through. But that may have just cost him. He has a 1.8 second gap. It's almost 1.9. He has to stay within 2 seconds of Kulmanic in order to gain that position. That gap is slightly coming down as well. 1.7 now between him. Piloto Paya has obviously crossed the line and taken the win. Joe Eterno will take P2. Kulmanic P3. But Hayden will jump Kulmanic. Gets himself the final step of the podium. Captain Consistency strikes again.
Yes, sir, it does. He will be elated with that, I'm sure.
Hardy! Oh, no, Hardy! That one was on you, my friend. Unfortunately, he just went a bit too wide off the track, tried to rejoin, and went straight into the side of Aviator. Did spin, but he does still cross the line, does take P12. It's a bit sad, but it is what it is.
Yeah, let's just hope that doesn't have too much of a mental knock for the sprint race, as Blindside has crashed on the last corner.
And Amkasa's passed him on the last corner. That's just as a result of that one little mistake. I mean, literally, Barside had the worst start, and it wasn't even his fault. He did get hit by one of the racing points, or the BWT Ardent cars. I'm not sure which one it was. I think it was Ravenduck, but I could be wrong. Who span basically just lost the rear off the start, went into the side of Barside and launched him off into the wall. So, you know, fair play to Barside for staying in this race. But he Yeah, he's definitely outside the points. Remember, the top 8 are the ones that get swapped and reversed. So Beaker will start in P2 because Marquez is obviously in P8, so he will start on pole. It does also mean that Piloto Paya, I'm going to double check though in a second because I think he's actually on track for a perfect weekend. He didn't have the fastest lap because Maku had it, but I don't know if the points will still go to him because he's the only one in the points.
I'm on the results screen. Yeah, he does have the fastest lap.
All right, so he got the qualifying 4 points. He's got the fastest lap 2 points in this race and the win. So Piloto Paya is on track to become the second person, to be on the Hall of Fame of the perfect weekend. He's one of the only 2 who would have done it if he does do it. Obviously, we know Bottas Gang has done it once already. But the rundown is as follows. Piloto Paya, P1, Eterno, P2, Hayden Gullis, P3, from P12, by the way. Just pointing that out. Coolmanic P4, Landos Millen P5, Foxy P6, Beaker P7 from P18, huge move from him, and then Marquez P8. These will get flipped and reversed, so it'll be the other way around at the start of this next race, with WG Players P9, Dennis P10, Evier P11, Hardy P12, Burrito P13, Barside 14th, Amkasa 15th, Tiger Jr. 16th, Ravenduck 17th, and Maku in 18th place. That is also the standings, just that Piloto Paya has a much bigger gap due to the the 4 points you get from quality and the 2 points you get from the fastest lap.
Yeah. And of course, you were saying about him potentially getting the fast weekend, but you've got to remember who's starting in second place, Beaker.
Yeah, that in itself is a really difficult task to beat, because Beaker is rapid in these F2 cars. We've said this every single week for the last, 7 or 8 weeks, because he just seems to show up, deliver, and then go to bed. It's fantastic. But he is one to get caught up in incidents. And that is something that he needs to make sure doesn't happen. If we have an issue going in towards turn 1, obviously Marquez, like we said, whilst he is driving on a keyboard, and we do celebrate that he is on a keyboard, it does make his driving a little bit less predictable due to the very jerky driving, if that makes sense. Because obviously, your turning is either on or off. There's no slight little bit of turn here or slight little bit of turn there. It's full turn or no turn. So he's got that issue for him. But as keyboard drivers go, or as drivers go, never mind just keyboard drivers, as drivers go, Marquez is doing a fantastic job of making it look easy.
Yeah, the keyboard, because I actually used to race on the keyboard a couple of years ago. It almost feels like when you're on a controller and you haven't quite learned to be really smooth at steering it, so you're just yanking it left and right. Yeah. It feels like that. It's not nice.
I mean, like I say, Marquez, you can see if you look at his telemetry, it's just on, off. It's crazy. I love watching how he drives.
Yeah, it is quite a marvel to look at.
I mean, it just really kind of puts to shame some of the people, like myself, for example, who, because when I race on track with Marquez, we're about on par picks, and I'm not that fast a driver, as everyone will tell you, especially my chat, they will definitely tell you. But me and Marquez are relatively, I think I'm maybe slightly faster, but in difference, he could beat me on a 20 quid keyboard, whereas I'm racing on however much it costs for the entire rig I've got. It just shows you don't need money to be fast in F1.
It's about the driver, not the equipment.
Exactly. All the gear, no idea, is how I describe my own driving. But Marquez is obviously starting this race on pole position due to finishing the last race in 8th place. Beaker P2, Foxy P3. Foxy did start P3 in the last race. Didn't quite get the run he needed. He had a pretty awful race when it came to the warnings perspective. Still, good result. He did well considering his penalties. He actually crossed the line. P4, was it? P5? I think it was P5 because he gave the position to Hayden. He didn't have to do that. But, a still really good result from him. He can still gain a lot of points in this race. It is only the top 8 that score in this race, and it is reduced points versus the normal point system. I think it starts from P3 onwards. Based on the normal point system, but we'll have to wait and see. But we are here then, getting ourselves back onto the grid. We'll go on board with Marquez to see how good his start can be as we get away with the sprint race here in Britain. Lights are on then. Marquez at the front, Beaker alongside of him. And it's go time here. Very clean start for Marquez, but a huge start for Foxy. He's actually trying to get down the inside of both of them. I think he has. Foxy has got a fantastic start. Gets the race lead, and there's a rotation at the back. Is that Coolmanic? It's not. Who is that?
It's Landers Milkman.
Yeah, and it's actually Aoterno gets the penalty. He's had contact. Coolmanic has had a bit of a lunge there into the side of Beaker. Beaker's get alongside Marquez. Marquez gets sent out wide. It is Foxy that's race leader, not Maku, I can assure you. And it is Beaker now up to P2 again.
Yeah, he's going to be hunting Foxy down there. He's going to be looking for the blood of that fox and trying to get this win.
Oh, Aoterno is going for a bit of a move here. This is on WG Plays. Hayden's actually stuck behind this as well. Hayden's trying to get down the inside of Aoterno. He's also trying to get a quick move on WG Plays, and they do not want to be scrapping like this throughout this area of the track. You don't want to lose the train that is the British DRS train. Obviously, we have to wait till lap 3 for that to start. So they are going to go side by side through Cops. He's also going to allow Aviator to get around the outside. Hayden Gullis is going to be trapped out there. He gets a little bit of a tap there from Aviator, but he is still alive. And this is still very tense and very tight because Aviator's still there. He's still alongside Dennis. Oh, no, there's contact. Hayden has actually recovered a little bit, but he has lost an end plate as a result. And he will now start to fall down the order. Brito Bandito was almost getting past. He's had a bit of an off, and Hayden falls to P11.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you go from hero to zero.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that's necessarily Hayden's fault. I think he just kind of...
Oh, no, I wasn't saying this is his fault. I'm just saying a good race to a bad race.
Foxy's just clipped the back end of Beaker, and that caused him to lose the back end quite a lot. This has brought Marquez right back into this fight for P1. Yes, there was no damage for either driver. You know, there was definitely a Beaker blow there, I think. But still, Beaker leading this Grand Prix. Foxy has a lot to do to bring himself back into this race lead.
Yeah, I think Foxy may have to actually rely on penalties because Beaker is looking like he's trying to just fly away at the moment. And with exits like that, that's going to let him.
Yeah, 100%. The DRS is not available for the drivers. Again, we are only on lap 2. Ignore what it says in the top left and in the bottom right. But that does mean then that Foxy is under attack from Marquez. Looking for a move down the inside. This is actually beneficial to Coolmanic, who's going to be able to get a switchback of dreams on Marquez. Watch for the cutback he's going to get here. Now the exit has to be smooth, which is exactly what he gets. Marquez will kind of be a bit of a sitting duck as we come towards Cops Corner. I don't think there's going to be a move into Cops, but I am expecting there to be a bit of a maneuver as we come out of Beckett's.
It's not a great exit for Coolmanic out of Cops, so like you said, I think it's definitely have to be out of Maggots and Beckett's. Foxy, I think he's truly lost Beaker now. He's well off into the distance, so this is going to be the fight for second by the looks of it.
Yeah, without a doubt. Here comes Coolmanic then on Marquez. Marquez had a bit of a poor exit there, which has kind of cost him a bit of momentum and allowing Coolmanic to get alongside. There's actually another car. Aoterno! Where did he just show from? He's actually down the inside of both of them. He's going to get into P3 is what he's trying to get. And he very nearly made that work. He does have a penalty, though. Bear that in mind. Coolmanic up to P3. Marquez! No, he has to brake. No damage, though, on Aoterno's car, or at least marginal damage. Nothing I can see to the naked eye. But this is going to now compromise Aoterno a little bit. Is he going to go for a move in towards turn 1? I think he might actually try this. Marquez is technically ahead. Oh, my word. Aoterno clearly has a crystal ball because he saw Marquez going to go for the chop. And it wasn't necessarily... would have been... I mean, Marquez is entitled to that line because Aoterno was not alongside enough. But that could have been Joe facing the wrong direction. But this is great news for Piloto.
Yeah, and that was great reactions from Aoterno. I don't know if he was predicting that was happening or reacted insanely quickly. But either way, the fact that he hasn't spun around at turn 1 is remarkable. Speaking of spinning, Aviator's just gone round.
Yeah, he has. That is a bit of a problem there for him. Outside of the points, remember, because it's the top 8 that score points, not anything else. Joe Aoterno, again, looking for Marquez, this time in towards Cops Corner. Is he going to read the ball again? Oh, a bit of touch there between them. Bit of a lunge there from Joe Aoterno, but he has actually, I think, got that maneuver done. Yes, he has. There is also Piloto Paya in P6, trying to get his way through. He's running out of laps if he wants to get the race lead, but I think Beaker's going to shut that one down by being that bit far ahead. 3.5 seconds is the gap between them, and now here comes Piloto with the DRS wing wide open, is going to get the momentum he needed past Piloto Paya, past Marquez, and now up to P5.
Piloto's a man on a mission because I believe he was actually down 11th, 12th on the first lap. He lost a few positions, and now he's doing everything he can to... I think the best he's going to hope for at the moment is probably a podium. I reckon Foxy and Beacon might be too far away. But Kulmanek, especially now, and Eterno are definitely within his range.
Yeah, 100%. Joe Eterno looking for another podium here. He's actually in with a shot of doing so, but that penalty that he has got may affect him quite considerably. Marquez has just got himself one anyway, so that will help him sort of cover him off to the rest of the drivers. But there is a bit of a train forming. It's still there from realistically the get-go. The top P3 down to P8 is the long train. Dennis at the back of it. Potentially going to go for a move here on WG Players. He hasn't got a DRS advantage over WG Players, but he has got a momentum shift. He comes out of the toe just to make sure he doesn't run into the back of him. Looks for the inside. WG Players covers that off quite nicely, and they will stay 7th and 8th. WG Players P7, Dennis P8.
And Antono's all over the back of Kulmanek. He's gone the slipstream. He's pulled out of the slipstream now to maybe have a look at comps. Maybe just try and compromise Kulmanek's line for a good exit. Oh, and look at Piloto. He's looking all over this as well, looking for any gap to sneak through.
Yeah. And this could go wrong for any one of these drivers. If anyone has a spin here, you're going to lose. Oh, Eterno gets a little bit caught up there in the back of Kulmanek. There's been a rotation further down. I believe that is Dennis. Yes, it is. He's fallen now to P11, maybe even further. But look at this charge now. Eterno looking for Kulmanek. Piloto Paya trying to do the same thing. He's going to go for the inside line. He's backed out of it. Eterno's going to take the outside through Stowe. Piloto Paya can see how much they've lost momentum. This could be a run around the outside of Eterno. Although he's had a look down the inside once more. Joe Eterno's actually looking for Kulmanek once more. Kulmanek gives him the space on the apex. Joe's got a better exit, I think. He might actually go for a move in towards turn 1. No, he's not. It might be Piloto going for a move.
Well, he's in the slipstream, so he's not quite close enough, but he was definitely gaining there. I'd say Tony's got a very good exit. Is he going to go and Kulmanek down the inside? He's a little bit later on the brakes. He's going pretty deep. Side by side. Heading into the left-hander. No, Kulmanek stays dead. He might have been trying to stay behind for the DRS.
Yep. Oh, Joe's had a really poor exit. That has allowed Piloto to get ahead of him and actually get quite a bit ahead of him as well. Yes, it's only in 2/10, but we are on the final lap, bear in mind, so this is going to be crucial to make sure that you get this all locked in. Piloto doesn't have penalties, I believe, and I think neither does Kulmanek, so they should be able to hold on to their P3-4. Joe just needs to watch out for the gap to the drivers behind. He's covered with Marquez because Marquez has his own penalty. But WG Plays, I've not seen a penalty for him. Doesn't mean he doesn't have one. But he may lose out as that gap is 2.3.
And just to note, Piloto does actually have a penalty.
Oh. And Eterno's just got a second one now, so that's even worse. A scenario for Joe. He needs to recover pretty drastically somehow. P5 looks to be the best he can achieve, and that's if WG Plays has a penalty. We know Marquez does. That might be a bit too much. But P3, Piloto Paya is going to look for a maneuver on Kulmanek. Kulmanek's going to go defensive in towards Stowe. I think they may actually get this move done in time. But never mind. Kulmanek's going to stick it down the inside and hold on to it pretty tight to the curb. The apex was definitely his. Purita Bandita's got a 2-second time penalty. Piloto Paya is still alongside as Beaker's going to come around the final corner now and cross the line and take the win. Foxy will hopefully take P2 as it stands. I don't think he's got penalties. But look at Joe Eterno down the inside here. Piloto Paya is going to try and drag race into the line. Piloto's got P4. They will finish as they are. Kulmanek gets P3. Piloto P4. Eterno P5. Oh, my voice. How? How is that so close?
That was a pretty good last lap battle.
That was pretty mental, to say the least. Lando's Milkman will take the final point scoring position. Hayden Gullis just missed out from a double points finish. But yeah, still, I don't want to take anything away from how good a drive Hayden had. He did unfortunately get caught up with damage. You know, this is something that he has time and time again when it comes to these sprint races, because he does well in the first race, right? This is his issue. He's plagued with this. He does well in the first race. He then gets put in the middle of the pack, obviously because it's reverse grid. And that's the part where he has issues. You know, when you are a faster driver among the slower drivers, it's very difficult to manage your pace whilst also trying to overtake someone as cleanly as possible. It's really difficult.
Yeah, it's really that balancing game, isn't it? Of obviously wanting to get past the eye, but also not losing yourself too much time.
Amkasa has actually finished all 3 sessions he got involved in. Quali, Race 1, and Race 2. So whilst he hasn't raced on F1 in a very long time, That is still quite an achievement, all things considered. But that is the end of the sprint race here then. So we'll get the rundown and the weekend order in just a second. It is going to be Maku who gets... No, that's not right. Beaker who gets the P1. There you go. Beaker getting P1, Foxy getting P2, Kulmanik P3, Polotopaya getting the fastest lap, but he didn't get the race win. So he got almost all of tick boxes he needed for the perfect weekend, except that race win. So he finishes P4. Joe Eterno gets P5. Aviator gets P6 with WG Players getting P7. Lando's Milkman P8. Hayden Gull is P9. Raven Duck P10. Barside P11. Marquez P12. Tiger Jr. P13. Dennis P14. Hardy P15. Burrito Bandita P16. And Amkaza in 17th, with the only person to DNF being Maku, who I think wasn't actually here anyway. But the winner of the overall weekend is Piloto Paya, who gets 37 points for his efforts this weekend. Joe Eterno, a big result, getting P2. Kulmanik P3. Foxy P4. Beaker P5. Maku P6. Hayden Gullis P7. Although Maku actually didn't get P6 because he got points apparently in the second race when he didn't deserve them. Hayden would actually be P6. Landers Milton P7. Marquez P8. WG Players P9. Aviat P10. Dennis P11, sorry. Raven Duck P12. Barside 13th. Tiger Jr. 14th. Hardy 15th. Burrito Bandito 16th. And Carsa 17th. And then Maku, who would be in 18th place. But that's it for the F2 races. But do not go anywhere, because in just a short while, we'll have the hype video for you for the RNL F1. And then we'll get underway with the British GP here in the F1 races.